Well, good evening. We'll call our meeting to order. This is the regular board meeting for the Pat School District Board of Directors. Earlier today, we had a study session where we talked about the construction costs and the escalation that we're seeing and talked about some options there. And so if you're interested in that information, you can certainly see that on our YouTube channel. I believe that will be posted within the next couple days. So, perfect. All right, well, to begin with tonight, we'll have a flag salute, and we'll have the Robert Frost Cougars come and do that for us. So, Ms. Bacon.
Good evening, Board President Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. I am Jamie Bacon, the Assistant Principal at Robert Frost Elementary School, and I am here today with our students and our families that are in the back rows back here. We represent a very unique student body that is made up of our mainstream English, SLC, Spanish, Russian, and Spectrum bilingual cohorts. Our special guests and families are, we have Clarissa. Go on straight to the front. There you go. Hang on, Clarissa, just for a moment, sweetie. We have Clarissa, Juan, Abigail, Jericho, Achilles, Hennessy's, Esther, Rachel, Janero, and Montserrat.
We are Frost. We are diverse. We are inspired. We are united. We are empowered. We are excellence. We are Frost. We are Pasco.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, young man.
Thank you. Thank you. That's cute.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Cougars. So I think we have a little presentation for you. It's probably not as nice as a little cougar, but we do appreciate you coming, and we want to give you this little token. And when they're done with that, we'll ask your parents and family to stand. So these are cool. These are very nice. Very cool. These are the kind of cougars we like.
And
All right.
I like WSU Cougars.
Well, yeah, there's other cougars too that are acceptable. So we want to get a picture. Can we get you guys to come right up here and then turn around and look at your mom and smile? Look, yep. Put this young girl right up. Put her up front. All right. So, could we get... So thank you, parents, for coming and sharing your students with us. Could we get family members to stand? And we want to recognize you as well, those who have come with your students. I'm sure we've got... And Frost staff as well. We want you to be recognized as well. So thank you for coming and leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance tonight. And thank you, Ms. Bacon.
Thank you.
Okay, so continuing on, could we get a roll call, please? Present?
Present.
Present.
Present?
Present.
Present. Present. Present.
All right, thank you. Agenda review.
There are no additions or changes. We will be requesting an executive session under 4231-101G for personnel.
Okay, perfect. So special recognition tonight. Looks like we've got Shane Ettinger doing some NNPS award and ATP groups.
Sorry about that. Haven't got the new cameras installed yet. Good evening, Board President Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. Tonight we have the honor of recognizing that for the 12th consecutive year, Pasco School District has received the Partnership District Award from the National Network of Partnership Schools, or NNPS, at Johns Hopkins University. The success of this program is due in large part to the dedication of Special Programs Director Alma Duran, Special Programs Coordinator Lorraine Landon, Parent Engagement Coordinator Esmeralda Magana Valencia, and Parent Partnership Coordinator Josh Guajardo. I'd like to ask them to come forward to be recognized as we continue this evening. In a letter to the district, NNPS Director Dr. Joyce Epstein writes, "This is Pasco School District's 12th Annual Partnership District Award, a remarkable achievement that recognizes the strength of your district's commitment to a culture of partnerships in all schools. As you know, repeat award winners must continue to show that they are improving their partnership programs from year to year, and by doing so, you have solidified your district's reputation as a national leader on partnership program development." Once again, 2 district-level programs will be featured in the NNPS national publication, Promising Partnership Practices. They include ATP in One Click and Leading by Example. In addition, a total of 8 Pasco schools will also be featured in the Promising Partnerships Practices publication for their outstanding Action Team for Partnerships programs. Pasco schools and the district have been represented in every edition of this publication since 2006, and more than 90 excellent Pasco activities have been shared nationally by NNPS. I'd like to share some information about the award-winning programming in our schools. When I call your name, please come forward. I know that not everyone could be here tonight, but we still want to recognize everyone publicly for their efforts. Curie STEM Elementary's ATP created an Internet safety and awareness workshop for students and parents that focused on ways to reduce cyberbullying among students. They also shared strategies with parents to help them teach their kids to use the Internet in safe, fun, and productive ways. Curie's ATP chairs are Lindsay Marcus and Heriberto Frias. Their principal is Valerie Aragon.
Can you guys come up here so we can see you, please? Yeah,
Emerson Elementary's ATP hosted their PBIS party, which provided parents with an opportunity to learn more about the positive behavior interventions and supports program at their school. Emerson's ATP chairs are Stacy Arts, Sean Murphy, Rodrigo Javier, and along with Principal Brooke Schultheis. Livingston Elementary's ATP hosted a family fun and safety night where families rotated through several 15-minute presentations on auto, fire, internet, pharmaceutical, personal, and water safety. Livingston's ATP chairs are Jordan Carter and Macario Hernandez. Their principal is Joe Yisha. Markham Elementary's ATP created a Mom and Me book club. Parents and students read books together at home and then came to the school for book club meetings where the families discussed the books while engaging in fun and educational activities. Markham's ATP chairs are Wendy Buse, Amber Haynes, and Melissa Rojas. Their principal is Kim Mahaffey. Robinson Elementary's ATP hosted 2 student goal sharing nights where parents came to the school for student-led conferences with their teachers that focused on student goals and their ongoing progress. Robinson's ATP chairs are Daniel Garza, Jorge Trigo, Blanca Zabalza, and Principal Wendy Manthai. And Twain Elementary's ATP hosted a Candyland family night where the school was transformed into a giant Candyland game board. Parents and students visited a dozen different booths focused on reading, science, and math, and sometimes all 3 of them together. Twain's ATP chairs are Tyler Thompson, Emily Williams, Janice Heitschmidt, and Principal Barbara Pierce. Stevens Middle School's ATP also hosted an Internet Safety and Awareness Night that focused on cyberbullying and the dangers of online sexual predators. They partnered with the Support Advocacy and Resource Center to share this important information with their families. Stevens ATP chairs are Rose Gilliam, Chris Grindstaff, and Margarita Ramos. Their principal is Raquel Martinez.
You guys can kind of just fill in right here in front.
And last but not least, Ochoa Middle School's ATP hosted a family STEAM night where students and parents visited several stations where teachers were leading fun, hands-on activities focused on science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Representing Ochoa's ATP are ATP Chair Linda Williams and Principal Jackie Ramirez. We want to thank you all for the difference that you make in our schools and for the positive influence that you have on our Pasco students.
Hold on just a second. We've got to. Thank you for your work on behalf of our students and our school district. So, and thanks for coming tonight to be recognized. We appreciate that. Okay, so this is the portion of our meeting that we open it up for those who wish to speak to the board, to stand up and make your comments. We do ask that you, if you wish to speak to the board, that you give us your name and affiliation with the district, and also be mindful that you have 2 minutes to speak. And Ms. Thornton has the yellow envelope, which indicates you've got 30 seconds, and then at the red envelope, please finish up your thought. So anybody wishing to speak to the board, please come forward.
Hi, my name is Azucena Arroyos. I don't have an affiliation. Graduated from Pasco High back in 2012. I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. I want to say I was raised here. I grew up with Pasco School District. Like I said, graduated from Pasco High in 2012. I'm here because there was an incident about 2 weeks ago between a student at Pasco High, who's a senior at the moment, and then the dean of students, his secretary. My mother and the dean had made a contract for my little brother because he has issues focusing, so they were going to confiscate his phones. So they took his phone away, which I agree with. That was okay for them to do. But my little brother was asking for the phone back, and I guess he must have annoyed the secretary or something. But she said, so my mom was working, and what she said was, maybe if she cared about you, she would come pick up the phone. Like, mind you, she is working, and she didn't come pick it up the previous days because he's just going to get it taken away again. So why go through the hassle of bothering everyone and, like, coming to pick up the phone just to have this happen again? So I kind of just came to speak to you guys just to alert you guys that this is something that is going on. I don't believe it's an isolated incident with just my little brother. And just kind of, I would like to see some type of action taken or some training, like something to ensure this doesn't happen. 'Cause essentially, she just bullied him. And no one wants to go to school and hear, oh, your mom doesn't care about you. That's why you're not doing good in school. So, yeah. That's
All
my
right.
piece.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing that with us, and I'm sure that we will.
So, Asusana, there's 2 people in the audience I want to introduce you to. Dr. Jenny Rodriguez, who's raising her hand. She supervises high schools. And then also Mr. Eric Bowles, who's also going to raise his hand. He is the assistant superintendent in charge of all things instruction. I want you to connect with those 2 folks before you leave, and those will be your contact people to resolve this issue.
All right, thank you so
Yes.
much.
Second call for anybody wishing to address the board. Okay, so we'll close this portion of our meeting and moving on. Agenda item number 7, approval of the meeting minutes. Can we get a motion?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes from September 25th, 2018.
I'll second the motion.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the regular meeting minutes for September 25th, 2018. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion carries. Number 8, consent agenda. So we've got personnel, warrants, Pasco School Board of Directors legislative priorities, Emerson, Frost, and Whittier Elementary School security upgrade change order number 1, overnight and out-of-state student travel for Chiawana High School FFA students to attend FFA National Conference and competitions in Indianapolis, Indiana, and overnight student travel for Chiawana High School DECA students to attend Fall Leadership Conference in Bellevue, Washington. So could we get a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? If not, could we get a roll call, please? Yes.
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 Okay, so consent agenda is approved. We do not have any action items tonight, so we will move on to reports. Looks like our first report is pre-kindergarten programs and kinder registration event.
So good evening, Board President Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. I am here tonight to highlight some of the work that has been done in the world of early learning over the past year and to share some of the next steps as we move forward. The first of our district's outrageous outcomes is for third grade students to read on grade level in their language of instruction, as well as 100% of our students passing algebra by the end of 9th grade. In order for us to achieve these outcomes, our students must be provided a strong foundation starting at birth. So as you are aware, we were provided occupancy to the Early Learning Center last January. The staff have enjoyed being in the facility with colleagues who have a mutual passion for young learners. This has allowed them to collaborate more to develop a rich learning environment for students. For our students with disabilities, being at the center has provided them opportunities to interact with typically developing peers who demonstrate stronger language and social skills. We are continuing to work together to build our own school culture and designing engaging learning experiences for all of our students. I would like to formally invite you to attend our ribbon cutting ceremony that is scheduled for November 8th at 10 a.m. So we are in our third year of collaboration with Partners for Early Learning. Through this, monthly trainings are offered to early learning providers to provide them with knowledge and tools to support the various areas of child development. A few of the session topics this past year included early numeracy, toddlers to teens social curriculum, and activities to develop gross motor skills through outdoor play. Each month, an average of 65 providers attend the training hosted in Pasco, which is offered in Spanish. Early Achievers coaches who support providers with their quality ratings have reported that they are witnessing implementation of the information acquired during these trainings while they are working with in-home and center-based providers. Oops, behind. So for the 17-18 school year, Pasco School District contracted with the Children's Reading Foundation of the Mid-Columbia to help with the initial implementation of Ready for Kindergarten. We had an overall attendance throughout the year of 797 parents who participated in workshops. Workshops were offered in English and Spanish. 530 of the participants attended English workshops, with 267 attending those offered in Spanish. Participation was higher for the 3 to 4-year-old session as well as the 4 to 5-year-old age groups. The Boys and Girls Club provided childcare, allowing parents to participate in their workshop. Overall, the program was well received by parents, and we are excited to continue this year. For this year, we will be running our own program and have scheduled 4 opportunities in each language for parents to choose from during each season, in hopes that they will find a session that works with their schedule. Generally, the workshops are scheduled throughout the month of October, February, and April. This year, our goal is to continue to grow the program for Pasco, increasing the number of participants across the district. As you recall, Board Policy 3111 was updated last spring. With the update to the language, we were able to offer an opportunity for parents of children who do not meet the August 31st deadline to apply to have their child evaluated. A team was developed to conduct a standardized evaluation of each of the children in multiple areas. Using the evaluation results, recommendations were made to allow early entrance into kindergarten or suggestions of other opportunities for the child. Of the 6 students who were evaluated, 1 was recommended as a candidate to enter kindergarten early. With this being new to us this year, our plan is to monitor the progress of the recommended student throughout the year in collaboration with the parent and kindergarten teacher in order to reflect and refine our process. With the language in Board Policy 3111, we will also be implementing a program to offer an extended kindergarten opportunity to targeted children. Promise K is our working title, building upon a model that we discovered in Bellingham. Staff will be working through a child find process to identify children who would benefit from extra time in an intensive intervention to help learn how school works. Students identified for the program will tentatively start at the end of January, allowing them 4 months of this early kindergarten experience. They would then continue in kindergarten next year as well. Because there is some available space, we are planning to pilot this at Rowena Chess this year. And on Saturday, June 2nd, we held our early learning fair at Edgar Brown Stadium. We had approximately 300 families who attended. There were 20 local agencies with booths to share information and connect families with a variety of resources. Some of the booths included Child Find referrals, Ready for Kindergarten, Parks and Rec, Mid-Columbia Libraries. We also had a school bus there and many other information opportunities. Technology set up computers in the meeting room to allow parents to register children for kindergarten, and there were a variety of Western-themed carnival games and activities for families to enjoy together. It was a very busy and fun day that would not have been possible without the support of the local agencies and many district departments and staff. This year's fair is scheduled for Saturday, June 1st at Edgar Brown again. Our goal is for this to become a common experience for all young learners in Pasco and an annual event at the stadium that our community looks forward to each year, starting our little ones out where they will eventually celebrate their high school graduation. Thank you.
So thank you, Ms. Dawkin. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just have a question about the early kinder starting in January. So how would you choose those students, and would they be just students that live in that Chess area, or would they be from
No,
all
we're
over?
not looking at them being just Chess kids. We would child find them. So we would be looking like kids who might be just above the income threshold that did not get into like an ECAP or Head Start setting, might be kids that we target. Also kids who maybe were evaluated for a special ed referral, but did not qualify, that might benefit from that extra time as well. We unfortunately have kids that sometimes get expelled from their other preschool settings, that we might target them as well to try and really break down skills, just really break them down very explicitly to teach them some of that, how school works, and, you know, very much so similar, like, for example, kids get on the bus in kindergarten. Well, prior to that, they've always sat in a car seat all buckled up in the car and stuff, and we put them on a bus where there's no seat belt or anything like that, and it's a new experience, and we have to teach them how we do those things. So this would be an opportunity to help support kids with that, so.
So then when they go into their real kinder class, would they go to the school that they would go to?
They would go to their home school for that. When we'd want to start building connections
Right.
with those home schools as well.
Thank you.
I had a question. I heard the numbers in there, 530 English speaking families or children attended and 267 Spanish. Do we know how many of those are repeat attenders?
I don't have exact numbers. We didn't manage the program ourselves last year, so some of our information is working. So we actually had just over 1,000 registrations. Some of those may not have shown, and some of them, I do know that we had 594 families targeted. And then 252 of those persons registered multiple times, so they may have attended, fall, winter, and spring. Or they may have multiple kids, so they may have, kids in 2 different preschool age groups and had attended for both children or multiple, I guess, that could be more, that they had.
I guess I'd suggest and maybe request, and I use this as an example. My wife took our preschooler to all 3 sessions, and that would probably count as 3 of these 897 or 797 attendees. And not that this program's great for everybody, but my wife's going to do what she can to advocate for our kid and do the best. But our kid isn't probably someone who's in the target audience as someone who's being at risk, whether it's English as a second language or poverty. So what can we do, or have the people who are running our programs do, to get those poverty statistics for us and those English as a second language, so that we can go and create the targeting, the programs to go, whether it's in-home visits or whatever the solution is, to ensure that a high number of the people that we get into are here, or a high percentage, are the groups that are really at risk and need the program more than my children or other people that aren't in those at risk do.
Well, there's a couple actual things that we are doing. One is, since we will be running it ourselves this year, we're going to be collecting data a little bit differently so that we can better answer some of these questions and look at our data a little bit deeper. Another is our recruitment efforts are going to be targeting exactly what you're talking about. So thinking a little bit outside the box in terms of how do we reach the families that we want to reach the most. So connecting maybe with home visitors or elementary schools to identify if they know little ones. Just really trying to think broadly and getting out there to help recruit families, and then trying to meet them where we can to get the information out there, really.
And I know I said it, I just want to clarify. It's great for all families. I think any family can benefit, but again, we don't want to discourage anybody, but we want to ensure that we have high percentages of those families that are at risk for the poverty and English as a second language attending. So I appreciate your efforts in that.
And our goal would really be to remove some of the barriers that are keeping maybe some people from attending. If they're working a couple jobs or something, that's a lot harder for them to come to a workshop in the evening as well, so.
So I have an interest in the data too. We've implemented a lot of pre-K programs lately because our kids in Pasco start dramatically lower than kids throughout the state of Washington and in the area even for kindergarten. And I have always wanted data, and there's such a lack of data. So are we earmarking these kids? This was a Ready for Kindergarten kid. This was these different programs so that we know, so that we can track their progress and compare them with kids that from similar backgrounds that didn't go to Ready for Kindergarten, to see if these programs help get our kids ready for kindergarten. Are we, and if it propels them and they're, I'd really like to see by the 3rd grade if more of these kids are on grade learning, or on grade at reading at the 3rd grade level as the kids that didn't go. Are we tracking that?
So we're not tracking like whether parents have attended Ready for Kindergarten in that, but Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have in the registration where parents are marking, like if a child was in ECAP, Head Start, what kind of preschool setting or opportunities, or none, that they may have experienced prior to entering kindergarten, so that we also can be able to track that data.
Would it be helpful to add Ready for Kindergarten as one of those precursors?
We could.
It would be, I just feel like anything that we're going to put money into, we need to be accountable that this is actually working and helping our kids. So if that can be shown in some way, I feel like that's a program that we want to continue with. If it's not, I feel like we need to review and see if something else works or remove. So I would love to track this the best that we can, because I want to make sure that the money we're spending in Pasco is money that is going to the place that it can best help our kids. So any way we can do that, I would love to see data from that. So thanks.
There was an email from our legislative advocate, Ms. Sullivan, about expanding the ECAP slots and possible additional funding. I don't recall exactly what it said. It was sent a couple weeks ago. Are you aware of that email? And
Yes, I am.
can you? So what's the impact of that for Pasco?
So we do have an opportunity. I know I was just talking with some of the ECAP administrators this last week, actually, to there's a potential for us to get about 20 additional slots for this school year. And we do have the capability to, we have the facility to be able to do that, room in our facility to do it.
I've also been in contact with the ESD superintendent immediately following that email, and there's some conversation happening on that level as well about what a potential application process could look like to expand as well. It'll be based on facility space.
Yeah. And we have 20 spots at the Early Learning Center or throughout the
We have the
district?
potential to take 20 more.
Okay. And how many do we have now total ECAP slots?
Let me tell you. We have 121 part-day and 58 full-day.
So it'd be a good percentage increase if we were able to get those, okay?
Do we have a waiting list for ECAP?
ECAP is required to, and Head Start both are required to keep a waiting list. So
Do
while they're full right now,
Yeah.
they're always taking and accepting applications because kids move
Yeah,
or whatever.
Just curious, so if we got 20 slots this year, would we have kids to fill them? Do you know how big the
I think we
waiting
would be
list
able
is?
to.
Yeah, okay. And that waiting list for ECAP, does that come from, does that come from, like, medical providers? Where do we get that information? Because you do have to meet certain parameters to,
And any parent can apply.
Okay.
And there's certain eligibility qualifications, I guess, where they get points. And so, like, kids that are foster kids, they're like an automatic in. But they look at income, they look at whether they have IEPs, other risk factors they might have in their life that may potentially, make it more challenging for them, cause some barriers for them. So they will get all those points, I guess, if you will, in order to identify. They do also take some over income slots, families as well, so.
yeah. I'm just curious, how we connect with them. Is it something that they come to us and say, look, my child is not developing, or is there an opportunity for my child because I'm
Anybody can apply for ECAP. So they publicize it, they recruit, they come to the Early Learning Center. We help them recruit as well.
Yeah, so what you're saying is they come to us, and I'm just wondering, is there a way that we're reaching out to those families?
They go out
that-
to like DSHS,
Okay.
Tracy Community Health. I mean,
And just-
they have an avenue of recruitment, I guess I'll say.
And I would expect DSHS tells parents when they come through, hey, if you have a younger child, you might want to check or apply for this opportunity. Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
And then they also, Head Start and the ECAP staff have, I'm going to call it joined forces, because they're really targeting the same populations of people. And so they've done a combined recruitment effort where they've also joint funded even a staff person to help be at some of those agencies where they might recruit some families as well, so.
I just know in the past, we've made a big push for ECAP, and we're getting slots. I just want to make sure that we're getting the students to fill those slots, because
Yes, we are full.
If we're gonna ask for them, we better make sure that we can fill them. So that's my primary concern.
Thank you.
Ready for, oh, sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
Do you think ready for kindergarten was last year our first year or second year?
First.
It was our first year. I'm assuming with word of mouth, I mean, because to me, Ready for Kindergarten is something that I would have loved to have been involved with when my children were young, because it's just nice. I never had a list. This is what your child needs to know when they go to kindergarten. I mean, I guessed and, you know, whatever, but that's just a great avenue to help make sure kids have the knowledge they need to be ready for kindergarten, and great resources for parents teaching children at home. So, but it seems like it's a word of mouth thing. Do you anticipate bigger numbers this year than you had last year?
That's our goal.
Okay.
So
And still recruiting like at the same level that we were last year. I saw Ready for Kindergarten everywhere last year.
yeah, we're trying to even recruit more.
Right.
So we're taking them out to local agencies and, of course, all the schools, and they're out at, like, the flea market, out at the Fiesta Foods, different places. We've been asking, like, as they purchase groceries and stuff, can they slip one of these in their bag, kind of thing, so.
Great.
so.
Thank you for the presentation. Can you go back to the slide, the Ready for Kindergarten slide? And I have a lot of comments on this because this is a passion of mine. This is what I do every day at work. So this is an area that, you know, I face on a daily basis. So a couple comments. You know, I really agree with what Mr. Lerman and Ms. Phillips said. You know, the beauty of this program is it can potentially reach everyone if they are aware of it, aware of how good it is and the resources they can get. And if something is valued, people will make sacrifices for it. I see it all the time. And where people care about their kids and their education, and they will sacrifice. I see parents, they trade babysitting. They find that we offer multiple times so that people can, no one works 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And so we have multiple times, Saturday mornings, evenings, and there's multiple sessions so that, for that very reason, so that you can find a time where at least someone in your family, the mom, the dad, the grandma, can go and get the resources they need. And this could potentially reach everyone in our community. Now, I agree with Mr. Lerman. You know, I actually went to all 3 sessions last year just to see what it was about. I knew it was a great program. I've met with the people. I went to their warehouse, their offices in Kennewick, and so I was very familiar with it, but I attended myself as a dad, and it was amazing, you know. And even though I'm a pediatrician and have 6 children, I learned new things, and it was a great, if nothing else, it was an inspiration to be a better father. So I would strongly encourage everyone in our community to go, no matter where you fall in risk factors or income level or job or how many kids you have, because it's amazing. But I would also like the data, you know, if this is, you know, how many distinct parents were there. Mm-hmm. Secondly, to Mr. Christensen's question about child find, you know, so in our community, it's a struggle because we have 2 counties, multiple school districts, and so our early childhood developmental resources are very scattered, and it's a frustration for everyone in our community. And we all do the best we can, but I wish there was better collaboration. But to answer your question, no, we need, and I've been advocating this forever, that there is not, ECAP and Head Start in general are not based on developmental need. They are strictly based on income and a few other factors, like Ms. Stockton mentioned. If you're a foster child, well, you just qualify automatically, but it's almost primarily arbitrarily based on an income. Say, I don't know what it is, $45,000. And if you make less than that, you qualify and you get put on a waiting list. And if you make more than that, you don't. And what we really need, though, is, and we have this ability, and it just frustrates me why we haven't changed this, is we have the ability to assess these children on their actual need, their developmental need, and then make sure that we're actually providing the service, our tax dollars, to kids that actually need it. Because just because your parent makes $5,000 more a year doesn't mean that your child didn't need it more than the other income. So see, it's a really poor, arbitrary use of qualification for these types of programs. So that's one. It doesn't matter right now, and it needs to matter if we're going to get the kids that really need the help. To the question about referral, so anyone can refer, and from birth to 3, there's a program called Early Intervention, or birth to 3. You can self-refer as a parent, a teacher can refer you, a babysitter, anyone, the pediatrician. Anyone can refer to be evaluated, and then based on your evaluation, you are recommended services or no services or some combination of services.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay. Go ahead.
So who does the evaluation? Is that something the district
That's
does?
what Child Find is.
Yeah, we have staff at the Early Learning Center who process those referrals and evaluate.
So you would take your child
Yes, to the center, and there's multiple centers in the community. Some can go to the Children's Developmental Center in Richland. I mean, there's multiple options where you can get assessed, but there's multiple people that can speech therapy, occupational therapy, specialists in the area, all the different areas that are assessed. So you have the assessment. So one of my biggest frustrations is that I have so many patients that desperately need the services but don't qualify, or they're on a waiting list.
Based
When I have
on
other
income.
patients that are getting full day preschool at age 3 with no real concerns about their development. And it's just mind-boggling and a travesty, and we have to fix that. So we need to legislate for that and change that. It's not going to be easy because there's a lot of state mandates. And anyways, this is a frustration because I get this all the time. But what we can do as a district is we can push the areas to make it more efficient. So, and I know not everyone agrees with this, but this is how I feel. So we have 121 part-day slots and 58 full-day slots. And then how many of those are like 2, 3, or 4 day? Because we could vary the days as well, but we may not be.
So all of our ECAP slots are 4-day slots.
Yeah. So if we took the 58 kids, so we're talking about 3 and 4-year-olds that are in taxpayer-funded preschool all day. That includes nap time, that includes feeding, and we are paying people to watch them for that. If we went to all part day, we could literally just add 58 spots right off the bat. Now, if we wanted to be really aggressive and really truly try to meet the needs of more people, you asked if we have the kids to meet this. Oh yeah. Our WA Kids data from last year, less than 10% of our entering kindergartners actually met the standard for all 6 areas.
So I believe we have the kids. I
Yeah.
just, are they on the waiting list is
Oh,
my,
no, no,
is
yeah.
my question.
So no, they haven't all been identified, but
Yeah,
in
that's my
kindergarten,
concern.
out of about roughly 1,000 kindergartners, less than 10% actually met the standard for the 6 areas of development. So the need would show that, okay, about 900 could have benefited from some combination of Ready for Kindergarten,
Right.
ECAP, Head Start, So even, as Mr. Lemmer's pointed out, even if you're not an English language learner or living below the poverty line, the need is so great in our community to help these children.
I don't doubt that. I believe that. I just,
And I don't
how are
mean
we
to
connecting with
Yeah,
those.
and I don't mean to
people?
just.
That-
I'm
no,
talking to
I
everyone.
totally get it.
Anyone that has any involvement in this, get involved, because we could help so many more kids if we would do this smarter, like Mrs. Phillips is mentioning. So the other thing we could do is go to 2-day ECAP, and then we could literally double from roughly 200 spots to 400 spots. So would it be better to help 400 families with the resources and tools and 2 days of
Two half days.
2 half days a week of preschool and reach 400 kids, or reach much less and provide them 4 days a week of taxpayer-funded preschool? I feel that the 2-day would be way better. We would reach twice as many kids and families, and the programs that are best, Head Start is finally doing this. They're really involving the family training, the Ready for Kindergarten component, where let's train the parents. They're with the child every day of the week. They're the most invested in their children. And I'll get off my soapbox, but this is how we get to the. I mean, we could help so many more kids if we were smarter about this. And so the only really downside I've heard to the 4-day or full day is that, well, some people won't go if it's not full day. Well, there are hundreds of other kids that we need to help. So by golly, let's reach out and help those kids go. And so anyways, we've really got to do better at this. I mean, we've got to get smarter, and we're missing so many kids, and that's why our numbers are poor, our testing is poor. We are not reaching. And so what's been done in the past is, well, let's just keep offering more programs to try to reach more. But we could reach so many more if we would just get smarter about how we're directing the services. So I'll stop talking about that. I have a question too. So if my child is starting kindergarten next fall, what do we tell parents? Where do they go to the school? Do they go online? What time of the year? What's the date that they can start registering? And when do we want them to register by?
I don't
next
know that an exact date has been established, but typically around March, they'll start taking registration. Registration is online. There are kiosks in each of the elementary schools that can help if a family needs help registering online. What else did you ask?
What date would we like them to register by? So everyone that lives
As
in our
early as
district, right?
possible, yeah.
No, I know, but do we provide a date? Like, please register by June 1st, July 1st, August 1st? What are we asking of parents to do?
We've not traditionally provided a date. I ideally, they would have them registered before school dismisses for the summer so that we can plan accordingly for staffing and stuff.
So how amazing would it be is if, as a community, we would anticipate that we have this early learning fair the first Saturday of June at the place where your student's going to graduate, and everyone push people to that event if they haven't already registered their kids for school. So that really was the hope and vision of that event. Was we recognize that June 1st is late, so we need to encourage people to register early. But for us to do a big community-wide effort in that first Saturday, and we're just going to forever do it on the first Saturday in June, and this be kind of the part of the culture of the community. We have Fiery Foods Festival, and you register your kid on June 1st at Edgar Brown for kindergarten at the very latest. So that's the hope and goal of that event, and it's a way that we can, again, we want people to go to their neighborhood schools and register and so forth early, but this would be a way for kind of us to start getting the word out there that June 1st would be awesome, and we're going to provide this event for you to do it. So that's the ultimate goal of that event.
I think that's a great goal. I would love us to put a date, say June's the day after that. So say June 2nd or whatever the day after, the Monday after that event. I think that's a great event that we're doing. Establish a standard. I feel like our expectations are so low. Sometimes as parents, we have such low expectations that they're going to rise or fall to those. So, and we don't even know as a parent, if you don't have a date, I mean, you're just going to keep putting it off. So we really need to establish, okay, the day after that fair, please register by this date. And if you do, other districts provide, okay, we'll provide your teacher or more information to you. If you've registered by then, and it helps us as a district immensely to know who's going to be here, who's moving, who's not planning on being here. So I'd really like us to set a date and put that out to parents so they register by that date.
How does that work with graduation?
Well, I keep scheduling it between the spring potential soccer playoffs and stuff like that and graduation.
Because graduation sometimes is the first Saturday of June, and is it supposed to?
So we'll defer our spot for the kindergarten registration to graduation, but other than that, not so much. How about that? So the only event that's going to trump our kindergarten event is
There's
graduation.
usually one weekend in between.
It'll be the,
And that's
You know
the
what?
it'll
weekend
be
I
the
get.
Saturday before
You
graduation.
have a whole bunch of people there, maybe you can do it in
Yeah,
between.
it's always the
graduation.
Saturday before graduation. Oh, that's a good idea. We'll just do it before, in the in-between.
Yeah, the carnival down there on the. So, coming back to, so so just a question on this kindergarten registration. So for the families that have students in school already, they typically register. It's not an issue getting them registered, is it?
Yes, it can be as well. They do need to, if they're in a preschool program of sorts and already registered, they do need to register for kindergarten because there's additional immunizations.
Yeah, I'm
and
not
such
saying
are
that they
required.
don't need to register. I just would expect that they're in the system, they would know that, gosh, we need to register.
Yeah.
I would expect that it's the people that either haven't had kids in school yet or who have moved into the community. But I guess I'm asking that as a question.
Having registered 3 children for kindergarten in our district, there's never really been an expectation. There's never been a date. It's always a question mark, at least for my oldest, or he's in 2nd grade now, so it would have been a couple years. But for my 3 children that we registered for kindergarten, and there's never really been an expectation or a common awareness of what the expectation or dates were like there should be.
Yeah, so I would expect that we would, as part of this early learning fair, that we would have, this is the date. Please register by this date. You can register early, certainly, but going back to the ECAP, so we have 58 full-day slots and then 120-some half-day slots. Now, how do we assign those to students or assign students to those slots? Is that?
The
is it-
ESD holds that grant, so they are the ones who have to process those applications and they assign them to those
Okay.
slots.
And I'm sure there's no flexibility in that. These are full-day slots. That's how they're funded. That's how you will use them.
Yeah, that's the way the state awarded them to them. And I don't have a good answer if they can change those to half-day or not.
And I'm.
It would be something to
yeah,
look into.
I'm sure yeah. I think it would be worth looking into that and talking to somebody at the Department of Early Learning or whatever they're calling it now and just seeing if we couldn't have some more flexibility there that meets our community needs. So I think that's worth looking into. And we're over in Olympia generally pretty regularly during session, and so certainly we could stop in and visit with them and just ask for some flexibility there if we need to. So, all right, any questions or additional questions or comments by the board? So thank you, Ms. Dawkin. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on early learning or early learning programs? All right, so seeing none, we will move on to agenda item number 11. This is where we're going to talk about elementary number 16 and 17 naming recommendations. Looks like we have Ms. Robin Hay here to lead this discussion.
Good evening, Board President Christensen, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. It is my pleasure to present on the process and recommendations for naming elementary 16 and 17. Tonight, I will be presenting 5 names to the school board for consideration. I will come back to you at the October 23rd meeting requesting action. This presentation will make you familiar with the process that was followed in soliciting nominations from students, staff, parents, and community members to name our new schools, show you how members from the naming committee were invited, share the process that the committee used to narrow the selection of names, and give you as a board an opportunity to ask questions and engage in discussion. In mid-August, a page was added to the Pasco School District website to request nominations of names for the 2 new elementary schools. Our staff, students, and constituents were informed of this via social media posts, the webpage itself, and our PSD app. Suggestions were gathered through the use of Google Docs. You can see that there were many submissions. Some names were submitted several times by different people. So we had 136 names for 16 and 64 names for 17. This is a sample of Google Docs putting together how the names came in. So you can see that we had PSD parents, staff members, students, and community members suggest names for both of the schools. The top set of data is for elementary 16. The second set of data is for elementary 17. You can see the number of names that say in the first set, PSD parents nominated 42 names. In the second set, PSD parents nominated 14 names. You can see how they're broken out. In mid-September, a similar invitation to participate went out to the public for members of the naming committee. It again was accessible on our district webpage and advertised in a similar manner. 9 people expressed an interest and were invited to the naming committee meeting. Of those 9, 6 were able to attend the meeting. The submissions were organized into 3 broad categories as indicated in board policy. Each submission was then printed and affixed to a board for the committee's viewing and use. There were a wide variety of names submitted from locally and nationally known persons to geographical landmarks that are familiar to Pasco. So here are some photos of our evening. The 2 boards with the large number of white cards, every name was affixed to a card, and the boards represented the 2 different schools. As the members came in, they received a packet that included all of the names that were submitted and the reason for each submission. They had the opportunity to study those names and to make notes, and then each of them had 15 votes for each board. So they went up, they made their 15 selections, And after that, we took down any card that had not received a vote. From there was some discussion. And then we did a second round of voting on each board, and they had 5 votes to narrow it down to our top choices. I would like to introduce the members who were able to attend tonight. I did invite them, and I was so impressed with the level of attention that they gave to being a part of the committee. When they submitted their names, they gave reasons why they would like to be a part of the committee, and so I was very impressed with that. When I call your name, would you stand up? Whitney Billman, Elizabeth Blake, Mark Welty, Karina Welty, Christina Vaught, and Patrick Zuniga. So I thank you for the work that you did. They did all the work, and my job was just to facilitate them. So it was really nice. Thank you. So there were many overlaps between the 2 sets of submissions, and in the end, when we had the final names, there were overlaps in those 2. So we have 5 names to put forward for 16 and 17, hoping that you will be able to select 2 names, 1 for each of the schools from the 5 names that we have to put forward for you. I provided each of you with a little bit of background information that I placed on your computer. I'm going to read those pieces of information aloud about the persons. And just of note, in Pasco, our schools are generally named after people. I was talking to Kennewick. They had just gone through a similar process, and it was interesting to note that their schools are generally named after landmarks. So here's a brief overview of the information. Bruce McCord lived and worked in Pasco from 1959 until his passing in August of 2018. He was a Navy veteran. He worked for the Northern Pacific Railroad for 44 years. He helped to form the Pasco Police Reserve Program and was the lieutenant in charge of the unit for 27 years. He was a member of El Catif Shrine in Spokane and the Columbia Basin Shrine Club. Arthur Fletcher was considered a civil rights trailblazer. He played college and professional football in the late 1940s and early 50s. He was an Army veteran. He worked with many political figures before his arrival in Pasco in 1965. He worked to improve the conditions of living in East Pasco for African Americans. He ran for the Pasco City Council in 1967 and won. In 1968, he announced his candidacy for lieutenant governor in Washington State and won his party's nomination. He was the first African American to run for a statewide political office. He believed in the power of education and helped to found the UNCF, coining the phrase, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." He became the Assistant Secretary for Labor in 1970 and served in the administrations of Presidents Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush. He is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. The next 2 names are geographical significance to Pasco, 3 rivers being for the rivers that run through our area. And Powerline Elementary, the road that is now Burns Road, used to just go to Road 68 and over to the east. And that was Powerline Road, wasn't paved or anything like that. But when Burns Road came in, they connect at 68 and it became Burns Road. So Powerline's significance lies in that it is now Burns Road and one of the elementaries will be placed there. And then finally, of national note is Cesar Chavez. He was an American labor leader and civil rights activist. He co-founded the National Farm Workers Association, later the United Farm Workers Union. He is a major historical icon for the Latino community and organized labor. He is famous for popularizing the slogan, "Si se puede," Spanish for "yes, it can be done." His work led to improvements for union laborers. He has received many accolades, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Many states celebrate his birthday as a commemorative holiday. So those are the 5 names that we are bringing forward, and again, the committee did a wonderful job. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present to you this evening, and I would be happy to provide any additional information if you would like some.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
So do you have 2 recommendations that came to the top? I mean, are they, I noticed there's an order on this paper. Is that the order that they had listed, or?
The order on the paper is putting them back into the 3 broad categories of people of local significance, geographical landmarks, and people of national significance, and that's a part of board policy in looking at it. So what I can say is all of those were very popular names.
So thank you, Ms. Hay, and thank you for committee members for working on that. That's probably got to be as challenging as doing boundaries. I guess that's
Coming to you next.
kind of a
Except not-
thankless job.
Not quite as controversial,
Well, yeah.
maybe.
I think that's the challenge. So we have 2 in each category with the exception of national figures. Was there only one? I mean, I'm just wondering, we've got 2 schools, we've got 1 national figure. Was there another one that was even close?
The other one who would be close was Dolores Huerta, who was a co-founder and worker with Cesar Chavez. But when we took it down to 5 names, trying to narrow it, and because there were such similarities between each set of final recommendations, her name fell off, but it certainly can be
Okay.
considered.
Well, I just was wondering if there was just.
No
there was only
significance
one,
to
and so
that.
there was-
And they're
Yeah.
2 different elementary schools. I think we could pick from various lists.
Yeah, I think, anyway, great work. That's, we had a challenge with the Early Learning Center, and we ended up calling it the Pasco Early Learning Center. We were pretty creative there.
We wish to avoid that. Because we're already Pasco Elementary 16 and Pasco Elementary 17, so.
You don't want to be known as number 16 and number 17?
Any comments, board members?
All right, I'll be honest. There's no. I don't want anyone to take offense. This is kind of like saying with all due respect, and then criticizing somebody. Thank you for the team that looked at this, and also thank you to the people who submitted these names and the families of these people and the friends of these people that of significance. And I guess nothing on this list, and I'm just one board member, stepped out and like really excited me or impressed me. But I'd be able to pick 2 names out of it. I'm just nothing stepped out, and I'm just being honest here for conversation to me. Or I went, awesome. This group of names is real exciting. I was pretty excited about all the names we got in the last one, and I know it's a tough thing for me to say here because I know people will take it hard, but I appreciate the work you guys did. I appreciate all the work the 3 people on this list did in the country and locally. So
Yeah, I don't have any criticism of it. I think in what you're saying, the group did exactly what they were asked to do, and I appreciate their efforts there. I just have serious concerns about just naming in general, to be honest. I think there is some wisdom in naming things after geographic location and other, in our early learning center, we had some names that were just words that were inspiring, and I think there's some wisdom in that. As we've seen in our country, a lot of things come out about people that become very controversial, and in our country we have buildings and schools and statues of people that in the end were found to maybe have done some not so great things. And so there's I have significant concerns about continuing naming buildings and schools after people. In addition to just concerns that may arise about that person at some future date, you start looking at just political or philosophical differences that people in our communities have, and that could be an issue as well. Location, I think there's some wisdom that it helps you identify where the school is, for one. I mean, it's taken me a good couple years, even though I visited every school every year, to remember where every school is, because they're just random locations. As was said, other school districts almost entirely use geographic locations. You mentioned Kennewick. Now Richland has a combination. They've started to use some more geographic locations. White Bluffs, Badger Mountain's been around for a long time, but they use locations as well, in addition to some names. So in general, my feeling is I'm not really in favor of using names. If we look at our last 3 elementary schools, I wasn't on the board then, but we chose, they were obviously McClintock, Curie, and Franklin, and I don't really have an issue with those names, but there are some concerns that I've heard in the community. There were 3 great female contributors to scientific discovery and innovation, but there has been a feeling at some of those schools that from the boys that they feel somewhat, what about us? Now, not just from the name, but maybe sometimes how the name ends up influencing the school. And if we look at data already, more girls graduate from college than boys. I mean, hands down, that's been years already. So I have concerns there. I have 5 boys and 1 girl. I want them all to be successful. I certainly have nothing against girls. I love my wife and my daughter and my mother, and I want them all to be successful. So I really am concerned about the way things now in our society divide us. They really separate us into female and male, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, like all of these divisions I think are really harmful to our society. And just look at the recent Supreme Court confirmation hearings for Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, just hugely divisive. Everyone was categorized into 2 groups. And I just think that's a really concerning thing for our society. So in general, I'm not in favor of names of people.
I appreciate your work. I think we just passed board policy that outlined some of these, did we not? Okay, that outlined some of these things. And I think we'd kind of settled more on names because that's what we've done in the past. So I think we're not being critical of you. I think we're being critical of ourselves. So I want you to know that. You guys have done a fantastic job. I do have some favorites just from looking at this. One thing that really stands out to me is some of the sayings that they have. I really like "a mind is a terrible thing to waste." And Arthur Fletcher sounds like an amazing man who did some incredible things to me that bridge both. He's not divisive. He did things that were very conservative and very liberal, and did some great things on both sides of that. And I would have no problem, I do have concerns. I know some things that have come up with some of the people that we have named buildings after. I do not have a problem with naming them by girl names, because we have so many buildings, I'm sure many more that are named for males than females, which tends to happen in life. And I think it's great to celebrate some of these women contributors. And obviously I'm female, so I might be a little biased, but I think that it is. I also know that we are having, there's a gender gap right now. And it's something that we're addressing as a school board and as a district, because our boys aren't. But I'm hoping that the name of the school isn't going to make it so, because we can't name all schools male names so that our boys do better. I think they need to be inspiring. Whatever the name is, it needs to be inspiring. I love Arthur Fletcher. I also love geographical names, and nobody in the Tri-Cities has Three Rivers. So my 2 votes right now would go for Arthur Fletcher and for Three Rivers Elementary School. That's what I'm leaning toward. But I really like Cesar Chavez. Yes, it can be done. I just like having inspirational sayings like that for our kids, so I think that might be my 3rd.
Can I just clarify, just in case there was misunderstanding, and words are very hard? I have nothing wrong with female names of schools. I was just making the point that some people perceive that. It's just a perception. Yeah, I have no problem with female names, and that's one thing that I would say that, well, we have a lot of, I would tell people the same thing. Well, we have a lot of male named schools. I totally agree with you, and I have nothing wrong with that. And I'm certainly not criticizing the committee. Like I said, they did exactly what we asked them to do. I'm just saying I think we maybe need to change our direction. And our policy does allow for geographical names, which is obviously why they have some geographical names on there. So I just think we should at least consider that type of transition. We certainly already have schools. We have Pasco, we have Chihuahua, we have Pasco Early Learning Center. So we certainly, all of our schools don't have a name of a person already. So.
Well, I'm in favor of, I didn't love the policy when we passed it, but it seemed to be tradition in Pasco. But I can understand the danger in naming names. And so if we want to do that, change that policy, I think we should approach that as a board and choose from these names that these people have worked so hard for. And I think that's what you're saying too. So, but I am definitely game to change that if we want to, because I didn't love it when we passed it, so.
Yeah, I'm fine with Powerline and Three Rivers, honestly. Powerline's very nice because it describes right where it is, and if you live in Pasco, you know where that, at least the idea, you know, okay, what's up there north. Three Rivers, it doesn't help in that regard, but I'd be fine with both those 2 names.
I prefer the geographical names also.
So I agree with Dr. Richardson. I think part of the challenge that we face as a nation is people can be very divisive and can line up on either for or against people, and that it concerns me when we name things after people because of that. Not that I'm not in favor of it. I think that's just one of the things that we have to work through as a community. All of our schools, I believe, are currently, at least all of our elementary schools are named after people, are they not? Is there anyone that's not?
I don't think that there is. I'm sorry, I know.
Even all of our middle
Okay,
schools
all
are,
of you.
except for Pasco High School, Pasco Early Learning Center, and Chihuahua High School, and New Horizons. I think they're all named after
Secondary
people.
schools, maybe.
So I'm getting
Delta.
confirmation that all of our elementaries are named after people.
So, and I have no issue. I think all 3 of these people, I'm sure if we dug hard enough, and if somebody wanted to, they could find something that they would find not very flattering about these people. But there's plenty of that out there probably for any of us. So I have no issue if we continue that tradition of naming them after people. I do think we need to be sensitive to that some people are going to be offended, but I would be in favor of continuing that, to be totally honest. And so I would probably vote in favor of Arthur Fletcher and Bruce McCord myself, just because they're local people. And if there were 2 on the national level, then I would be more in favor of considering a national figure. But I think at this point, my preference would be those 2. I'm assuming that the committee did some research and tried to look for anything negative on these people that might potentially be an issue.
I had done some research ahead of time to make sure that we weren't putting forward somebody that we would regret having named a school for.
Yeah, and you'll never know. Somebody's going to find something, but I think, yeah.
We've had a few requests to change current school names because of, I don't know what you want to call,
old, ancient, or,
Yes,
not,
past
yeah.
transgressions, I don't know
Yeah.
what you want to call it. But yeah.
So, I like staying with, if they're both in the same category, they're both local people. And so I would be in favor of those, but I also recognize that with names, there's challenges.
Were there any other okay, I live off Powerline High Road, and I was thrilled when it got turned to Burns because their historical family that had been here, I actually knew, anyway, I knew Letta Burns, who settled this long before the dam was even put in, and talked about how her house, she died a couple of years ago, but talked about how her house had to be moved when the dam was put in. And so I love that historical significance. I'd rather call it Burns Elementary School than Powerline, just because Powerline's, is it? Okay, so I don't want to be critical of a name. Why do we love Powerline? Simply because it's a geographical thing, or because we love the ring of that name, or
Patrick
help me with that one? Because sell me on the name.
Hello, I'm Pat Zuniga. I helped out with the process, and thank you all for your comments. What happened, or what we walked into was a situation where research was done. We were presented with names and votes, and we were, we had them tallied. How many names, or how many times this name was mentioned? And there was a little write-up where we got to read. Now, there was people on the committee that were strongly in favor of geographical names. Everybody kind of approached the process in their own unique way. That's what made it great. Some people saw the votes, and that took precedent over their own personal preference, and we just kind of talked our way through it. So I hear everything that you're saying, and I think the comments are absolutely outstanding. One thing I do want to express, since you're expressing your views to me, as a teacher at Stevens and somebody that studied the psychology of learning at the University of Kansas, cultural transmission does happen. So all of the things that you're talking about, for example, boys maybe feeling a little bit alienated because they're at a school named for girls, or this name being referenced with that, those things can occur, but the name, I don't know of any study where there's been a correlation with that high school creates these people. What can happen is that you get a staff that teaches what those, or believes in what the name stands for. For example, I was in favor of Dolores Huerta. I know that Dolores Huerta, I know her history, I've studied it, I'm Mexican American. And I also know that the students that I see at Stevens Middle School share that commonality with me. So, instead of teaching the history of Dolores Huerta, we talk about words like resilience, and we talk about selflessness, we talk about helping out others and compassion. Those are the words that we kind of discuss, what these things, how can we use these people, and what kind of staff might they attract, and therefore what kind of learning experiences might occur in the school itself. That's the kind of the lens that we discussed. But like I said, some people were strongly in favor of geography, and obviously their voices were heard. Some people were strongly in favor of the democratic process, and that, I believe, is reflected in some of the other names, as well as sensitive to the cultural issues or the cultural demographics of Pasco itself. So that's kind of the process that I guess that kind of captures what we went through. So it was a beautiful process, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in it. Do you have any other questions?
No, I love that point that you made, and I was thinking something very similar, that honestly this is an issue for adults. All the schools I went to, they were named after people that never affected anything in my life or education. I didn't think about that person. I didn't admire or love them. And they were comment Jefferson. I mean, it had zero effect on me. This is an issue for adults, and I'll explain to you one of the issues that arose with. I didn't mean to say either that certain boys. I don't know if it's an issue with adults, because one thing that happened at our Franklin schools, when they had the dedication, there was a skit performed by like second graders that was clearly influenced by the adults, that tried to bring up how Rosalind Franklin was, and I believe that she was wrongly treated and left out of some discoveries she made. But it was the way it was presented was this very discriminatory way against boys. Okay, my boys had nothing to do with that. None of the boys in that school, and the way that was presented gave the impression that, okay, we hate boys. It was horrible. It was horrifying. More to my wife, she about flipped her lid, because that's what our boys see. Okay, they had nothing to do with that. That wasn't their grandfather. It wasn't their father. That was 50 years ago. And I totally agree she was unjustly left out of discoveries. But presenting that type of presentation, which was again led by adults, to our children, that is not the message we want to send, because that does not send a good message. And that again is led by adults, not by children. So I totally agree with you. It's influenced by how the adults deal with and interpret those types of names and experiences. It's not something the kids just naturally say, well, I'm going to act this way because I'm opposed to that.
So where does it turn to Burns Road?
It's now all Burns Road. The power line was.
At the river.
Isn't that right? There's no power line road anymore.
To Burns Road, and it goes all the way.
Well, on the other side, isn't it power line on the other side of 68?
I believe it will continue as Burns, that
Yes.
So pretty soon there will be no power line
Yes.
road, is that? There, and probably won't be a power line.
There couldn't
True.
be no power line.
Might put that underground too.
We did talk about Burns when we were voting, and I remember turning to Robin and go, oh, it'd be really cool if Burns was on here. And then she told us about the family, and it was like, oh my gosh, why did no one turn that in? Can we write it down right now? And then exciting names. Oprah was on there. It was really hard to not put all of my votes on there in the hopes she would show up. That'd be really cool.
Something like
There. But it was really fun going through the process. I thought we did it in a really fair way. The way that maybe we came in thinking this would be a great name in your mind. I think a couple people in the room had also entered a name, maybe thinking I'm going to vote for that name because I entered it. But reading the really passionate stories that people wrote, about Bruce McCord and Arthur Fletcher, that's what I know drove me to you can't not vote for this name. Thinking about someone so influential in Pasco, and I know how I've been to schools where we weren't named after a person, so I didn't really have I graduated from Southridge, so I was like. When I graduated from Southridge, it looks like prison, whatever. And but there is some ownership to I worked at Ochoa. I got to meet Ellen Ochoa. It was amazing. We told the students about what she does. I work at McClintock now. We call it Babs Mac. And she was also she was treated very poorly for being a female scientist. And she was like a solo lobo, didn't want to work with people. But that's what we keep talking about. And I think there's a lot of pride that goes in being in a school named after a person. Where I do like the geographical names. I still like Burns / Power Line Road. It does have some significance though, so it's not for lack of heart with it. But I really appreciated being part of it. It was a lot of fun. I was really excited about it when we met to be excited about it.
So I still want to know the passion behind Power Line Road.
I think it was that it was that at one point in time, and that that road almost feels like a time capsule, where I know from my house to McClintock, if I went all the way through, half of it's road, half of it I'm just holding on for dear life because it's a private road and I'm driving through there. But it's moving towards being Burns. It feels like it has a power line road circa, put a stamp on it that even though it doesn't exist anymore, my parents still call it power line. I still call it power line, and I'll tell people, yeah, it's at 100 in power line, even though it's not that anymore.
So we've still got a middle school up there
Yeah.
that we'll have to name.
We didn't make names
If we
for
name
that.
it Burns, we get a twofer. We get a name and a location.
Yeah, you can get both.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, Oprah couldn't make it tonight, but if
I
you
know.
look under your chairs, go ahead, you might find something very special.
I wish.
Well, that's kind of cool. The power line, like you said, it represents the growth. I mean, I hadn't even thought of that. The name changes because our Pasco is crazy, growing rapidly, and so things have to change.
So just one. So was everybody in there? Was there anybody that had an issue with any of these names? And I don't. Everybody at the end of the night walked away thinking those are 5 names that I can support.
I believe everybody felt like the democratic process worked like it was supposed to, yes.
Good. Good. Thank you for your work, and thank you for coming tonight and sharing that perspective. That's helpful. So, at this point, is there anybody from the audience who wants to weigh in on the naming of those schools?
Or the
Oh, yeah, students.
Or what? Oh, students, absolutely.
I honestly, when I looked at these names, I know how I'm still getting used to everyone's names, but
Richardson?
Mr. Richardson said that, when he or was it Mr. Lerman? Oh, Mr. Lerman said that when he saw these, the list, he was expecting a little bit more, but when I came up here and saw, Cesar Chavez, and, I obviously know who Cesar Chavez is for being, this, great guy who, worked for the American labor. And, as being Hispanic myself, it really popped out to me. I was like, oh my gosh, that's pretty cool. But then after reading about Arthur Fletcher, it's like, wow, he was really a fantastic man. He was, how it says here, a civil rights trailblazer. He was based in Pasco, and he did so many great things, And, if even now, like if I moved here a while ago from, California, and if I came here and saw the name Cesar Chavez Elementary, I'd be like, wow. It'd be, not only did he do something, but that resonates with, the Hispanic part of me. And I think that would really resonate with, other Hispanic children that, don't really, like, I don't feel alienated by, the other names of other schools, but, that would be something different that I'd like to see.
Yeah, I agree with Alpha, to be honest. I feel like there's also, too, like a lot of places around our country that are named after Cesar Chavez, and there's roads. Like, I know, like, going to Dodger Stadium, you have Chavez Ravine. And so I think, too, like, coming from another, like, I was going to say another country, coming from another state and seeing that there's something, I feel like, deep down inside, there's something like, oh, wow, like, that matters. And also, too, like, the population in Pasco School District is primarily Mexican-American kids. And so I think that would be really good. And also, too, reading about Arthur Fletcher and Bruce McCord, I mean, they're local heroes that you could put. I don't see a problem with naming an elementary school after any of those people.
I think for me what stuck out was the names of people who are like of local significance, because I think it's really cool if you read like the things that they did and just the fact that they're inspirational and they came from Pasco. It gives like the kids that are growing up in Pasco like, oh hey, they were from here and they accomplished so much, which means that they know that like even I'm from Pasco, so I can do the same stuff, because it doesn't matter like where I'm at or where I'm located, I can still like achieve great things.
Thank you. Anybody from the audience? Okay, so board members, it looks like this will be on the agenda for our next meeting, and we'll have to make a decision by that time, so. Okay, so give it some thought. And if you don't want to speak and you want to weigh in, you can send us an email and let us know what you're thinking. That would be great as well. So that concludes our extended study/discussion. Agenda item number 12, future agenda items.
At our next board meeting, we will be having a study session where Alma and Raul and potentially Carla will be talking to you about the Center for Applied Linguistics bilingual program recommendations and update. They'll be giving you kind of an overview of where the work that has been going on and what the future of that work might be. There will also be some discussion that interfaces with boundaries, so I think it'll be a really interesting discussion for you. During the board meeting will be Dr. Reyes, I'm sorry. I'm struggling tonight. Dr. Reyes will be giving you an update on long-term facilities management plan. She'll be bringing enrollment projections, capacity, school size, and site size to you as just really an update in where the broader Community Builders Committee has been. It's just an update and awareness. The full report will be approved in its totality when it's completed, but this way at least you have some updates on its components. In addition, Kelly York will have the opportunity to do her first board report in collaboration with Susan Sparks, and they'll be giving you an update on the Employee Services Department, we'd done an audit and a review, and so there's an update on what the next steps will be in that. Communications is next.
We do, and we will be talking about names next time, right? That is on the agenda, or will be.
It will be action item. We'll put names, and then I did indicate there that there will be the bus lease program on a consent, or at least that's the staff's recommendation, and we can talk about that at agenda setting.
Very good. All right, agenda item 13, communications. Mr. Lehrman, would you like to start?
So I was able in the last couple weeks to go visit Maya Angelou. Thank you to the staff and Ms. Sisney there for the time they spent in talking to me and allowing me to visit classrooms again. Also visited MAC and talked to Ms. Fogelson, so thank you to her and the staff at MAC as well. And then are we going to have are we, during this communication time, going to talk about stuff we'd like to talk about in future board, or?
Actually.
I didn't see it on the agenda.
So I guess I should have asked on future agenda items, is there anything that a board member would like to have on a future agenda? So this is your chance.
All right.
We'll back up a little bit.
I don't remember if I CC'd the board officers. I talked and wrote to Miss Whitney, and I think I've talked about it in the past, but we have things, I'd like to see this, and it can be in the not near future, but when the timing is appropriate. We have state tests that there's pieces of paper sent home, cookie cutter type pieces of paper that are sent home from the state, and just how we use those as a district in the future and how we communicate to parents what those results mean when they come out, and how we use the individual data to talk to teachers about what their student might need. And for the teachers out there, what I'm talking about is if we have a smarter balance test that goes home to parents from the state cookie cutter style, you have kids that are in the middle, maybe like 3s or high 2s, and their parents are going to look at it and go, okay, my kid's, where they should be, and they're going to be okay with it. But you guys know you have kids that might be in the low 1s, or they might have pegged that test out and done perfect on it. And at this point, the parents get that. And I guess if they peg it out, some parents will say, okay, my kid's getting what they need. Other parents might say, is my kid getting everything they need on the top end? And the kids that are on the very bottom, is my kid getting everything they need on the bottom end? So what do we do in the future with those to both communicate with parents and also communicate with teachers to ensure that kids are getting what they need to meet those state standards if they're on the bottom end, and to meet their needs if they're on the high end and they already know their state standards early? So it might be a ways out, but I'd eventually like a board report and discussion on that.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Lehrman? All right. Ms. Lincoln?
I'm going to pass.
I just want to thank the district bargaining team and although it's finished a little while back, the teachers union and our classified staff, they've all reached successful conclusions, and hopefully it was a satisfactory conclusion. A lot of work goes into that, so thank you everyone that participated in that. We're excited to move forward and have the people that we have working with our students.
So Pasco High has several events going on. So tomorrow, actually, we have career and college prep day. So freshmen will be taking the WIOS, and sophomores and juniors are taking their PSATs, and then seniors are doing college prep stuff. We also have homecoming next Saturday. Next Saturday. And Spirit Week is coming up as well. So, yeah.
For Chihuahua, homecoming was this past weekend, and the ASB did a very nice job of putting it on, and it was well planned, and it seemed like it was a lot of fun. And also this coming week, next week, is the Pink Out Week for breast cancer awareness, and so it'll give us a chance to be able to raise money for donations to the Cancer Center. So it's coming up.
So first and foremost, I'd like to, say thank you to all the, the children that came from Robert Frost, and like thank you for like the little plushie. Like this is the best thing ever that I could have, I just love it. And, thank you all for attending. It was, this was a really great meeting to attend to. It was my, I got a little excited when I was talking, but it was it was great. So thank you all.
We love your excitement. That's why you're here, and that's why we want you here. So, I attended the WASDA regional
meeting.
conference. So WASDA regional conference. The president of WASDA was there, and the whole entire conference was spent on bargaining. So that was really interesting. They wanted to know how they could better support us and what they could do to go to the legislature to better support. So the legislature can better support us. And there were some really great things brought out. There was so much confusion in this bargaining, and as a board and as a district, we got so much different information. We never knew what the finances were until the last minute. It was just, I don't even know what you want to call it. It was just confusion, and trying to narrow down exactly what we were going to get, what we were going to have, what the money was for, was a mess. And so so it was a really productive meeting on how we can better get that information earlier so that we know what the legislature has intended it for, because we got so many mixed messages. And so it was really great on that, and how we can better support, and how even coming out. So had some really great things, and I was glad our district, there was a couple times I was frustrated. Okay, we're hearing this, then we're hearing this, then we're hearing this. And it was really nice to hear that was across the state. That was just across, and I think it was everybody. I mean, I don't think it was just districts. I think it was all of the employees' districts. We hear all of this, and there was not a consistent message. And so getting a more consistent message would have helped all of us better. So that was great. And really enjoyed that. And I think that's it.
So a couple weeks ago, we had a group of legislators here. So in the last legislative session, they established a task force to look at the way they're funding school construction. And that's made up of 8 different legislators, and we had, I think, 6 of the 8 legislators were here and took a tour of the buildings in our district. We recently completed 3 buildings and are going to build 3 more. Actually, 4 more, I guess. We're rebuilding Stevens. And so they came just to look at how things are going and get a feel for the crowding that we have and how we're trying to address that. And so I was able to spend some time with them. We drove by Stevens and Pasco High School to look at where we're going to build the new building at Stevens, and then the science labs we recently finished at Pasco High. And then we stopped at Curie and the Early Learning Center just to look at those projects as well. So I think that was productive. I wasn't able to attend the I think they had a debrief later that afternoon with panel discussion. Yeah, they were going to go over to Richland, but I had to leave. But anyway, so that'll be interesting to see what happens, what comes out of that. There's 2 factors that are the primary factors in buildings now. One is the square foot per student that factors into the equation for match money, and also the construction cost, and both of those have not been adjusted for some time, and they're a little out of whack with what the current reality is. So more to come on that. And I think that is about all I have. It runs in my mind there was something coming up that we needed to be aware of, but okay. Well, so we've got WASDA conference coming up in November. I think those who are planning to attend, we probably need to be registered if we're not already. So just keep that on your calendar. Anything, Michelle?
I don't have anything for communications. I just would renew our request for an executive session under 4230-110-1G for personnel. I'm anticipating it taking approximately 30 minutes.
Okay. So we have a couple of, I didn't recognize our scouts here tonight. We have one who's in uniform and one who was going to be in uniform, but I'm sure it's just in the laundry, right? So Thorne and Anderson, and then Sister Phillips. Who's this other guy? Sister Phillips.
Who is he? And I know I should have recognized you. We always recognize our scout troops, and we love having you as you build the community. So this is Brian Freeman. He is my brother. So are you the scoutmaster of? Okay, and he's a scoutmaster. I should know more about my brother, but anyway. So he's got his hand in a lot of different things. So it was recently, let's see, I didn't know. Anyway, so we are glad that he brought his troop. What troop, Brian? Troop 152. Okay, so thanks for bringing your troop here. Thanks for letting your sister know ahead of time.
And you young men are working on what merit badge? Communications? Okay, so part of that is... Okay, perfect. Well, thank you, young men. And with that, we will recess into executive session.